Good morning, everyone. I want to tell the story of Samson and Delilah. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Tragic love story. Forbidden love. It has all the things that would make a great movie. I'm sure there's probably been movies made, but we live in a world where people don't read their Bibles. So give me a few minutes of your attention and I'll tell you the story of Samson and Delilah. Samson was a miracle baby. His mama was barren, and it was, something that was very heavy on her heart that she didn't have a child. And that she prayed, and God sent an angel, and it was a miraculous intervention, and he was a miracle baby. And so Samson, from a young age, his mother and his father, Hannah and Elkanah, they dedicated him to God. And he had a Nazirite vow. Now, Nazirite vow had multiple stipulations, but one of them was which he could never cut his hair. It's like his Achilles tendon. The day he cut his hair, he breaks his covenant with God and he loses his superpowers. And he had superhuman strength. Not ordinary, but extraordinary. So, hair and making vows to God is throughout the Bible. Paul in the New Testament shaves his head because he had taken a vow to God. So, Samson's vow was a Nazirite vow, and he could never cut his hair. So, he, being Jewish, being Israelite, being seed of Abraham, right? How do I put it? His attention was drawn to this Philistine woman named Delilah. And so the Philistines were enemies of God. They, they were used by God kind of like a carrot and stick type thing, where if the children of Israel were obedient and obeying God, then the Philistines were at peace with them. But if the children of Israel were disobeying God and falling into idolatry and doing all kinds of wickedness and sinfulness, that God would use the Philistines to attack and to kill and to, punish them, basically, as a consequence for their disobedience with God, so that they would know that they had strayed from the path and that they had missed the mark, and then they needed to correct their behavior and get things back in line and get their house in order. And so he used the Philistines in that manner. But they were not supposed to marry them, right? They were their enemies. And so Samson, starts this relationship with Delilah, and his parents are not happy. They're like, can't you find a good Jewish girl? And so, but nevertheless, he's a little spoiled because being an only child, being a miracle child, having these super, abilities given by God, having this special status, having this long hair, having these big muscles. He was a little of a brat. And so he just, barges straight forward, is like, I want her, and he makes his parents, poor them, drags them to go meet her parents and all this stuff. So, okay, so fast forward. Delilah was an enemy of God. Samson was a child of God. Samson was, in covenant with God. And so let's think about this. When we set our heart on things that do not have our best interest in mind, when we give our love and time and attention to things in this life, relationships, jobs, pursuits, hobbies, passions, whatever it may be, that are not to our benefit, that are actually there to destroy us. We're in love with them, but they're not, on our side. They're not on our team. Okay, so fast forward, he's lets his guard down. He's got his head in her lap, and she's running her fingers through his hair, and he's just in a vulnerable position, and he has his head in the lap of the enemy, but he thinks this is someone that I love, And so we can love our vices and devices, but it doesn't mean that they love us back. And so she begins to reveal her motives in the form of questions. Samson, what is the source of your power? What is the source of your strength? What is the source of your this amazing abilities that you have? And so he doesn't tell her the truth. He tells her, "Oh, well, she's asking what can be done to take your power away. What's your weakness? What's your Achilles tendon? You got to have one. Tell me, tell me, tell me." And so he tells her, "Oh, if you tie me up with green vines, like 3 vines, then I'll be rendered normal like any other man." And so she does that while he's sleeping. And then she calls in the Philistines, and they come in, and he breaks the vines, of course. He's Samson. And then he kicks butt. And then she's mad. "Oh, you lied to me. You don't love me." And so roll forward. This happens multiple times. And the next time, "What's the source of your power?" And he says, "Well, if you tie me with 3 ropes that have never been used, brand new ropes, then it'll render me useless." Like some black magic. So guess what? She does that. And this keeps on. And then the Philistines come in, and he breaks the ropes. He kicks butt. And then over and over again, she's like, "You don't love me. You won't tell me the truth. And you keep lying to me. And if you love me, you would tell me the source of your strength." And so he eventually gets closer to the truth and starts telling her things about his hair, such as, "If you braid, my hair into 3 braids, that then braid them together, that I'll be rendered, weak like any other man." And so she does that. So he's getting closer and closer to compromising and breaking his covenant. He's playing with fire, and he's dancing with the devil, and he's compromising and getting closer and closer. So finally, he tells her, if you cut my hair, that's it. It breaks, I'll be rendered useless. And so he falls asleep with his head in her lap again. And she calls in a servant. And while he's asleep, they cut his hair. So, of course, again, calls in the Philistines. They come in. He jumps up like every other time, expecting to kick butt. And he gets his butt kicked. And they take him prisoner. They poke out his eyes. He's blind. So we lose our power. When we lose our covenant with God, we become blinded. Right? You see all the typology, all the symbolism, all the patterns here. And so he's imprisoned, he's enslaved. You remember for those either that love old movies or are old yourself, Conan the Barbarian. Remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger is on that millstone, and instead of a horse, going round around, turning that millstone and grinding grain into flour, Arnold Schwarzenegger was like pushing around and around and around as a slave. Well, that's what they put Samson to do. I'm sure that was inspired by that scene. Iconic. Arnold Schwarzenegger looks like a Samson type figure, right? And he's imprisoned. He's being used as a beast of burden, going nowhere. See, when you compromise yourself, you're going nowhere. You're a slave. You're just going round and round and round. And so he is living this life. He's blind. He's, in slavery. He's being used like a beast of burden. And they mock him because he had killed a lot of Philistines in his day, in his battles, in his victories. And so they mock him, the great Samson, look at him. People pointing and laughing and ridiculing him. And there comes a day, that shaved head, his hair begins to grow. So it's a tragic story, but it ends even more tragically, but also as a story of redemption. So his hair begins to grow. And it grows, and it grows, and it grows. And yeah, you know where we're going with this. He regains his power that he had lost. He becomes reborn, if you could look at it that way. He becomes regenerated. He becomes renewed. He strengthens and cries out to God and connects that umbilical cord of faith to its source, and the power begins to flow. And so they call him, there's a big meeting, and all the head Philistines, all the captains, all the governors, all the shamans, and all the stargazers, and everybody that was anybody in the Philistine civilization, they come together, and they're having this big, drunken fest, multi-day festival. And they're all inside this huge temple with all these pillars. Think of like the Parthenon, or the Decapolis, or one of these structures with stone columns. And so they, in their drunken reveille, they say, bring out Samson, make him dance, like the little monkey, just ding, 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 bring out Samson so he can entertain us. We can laugh at our enemies, those that had conquered us. Now we've conquered him. And so they bring him out. He does his song and dance. He's blind. He has no eyes. And so they chain him up in between two of those pillars when they're done with him. Yeah, okay, enough of that. He's no longer, entertaining. Next show. So they chain him up in between two pillars. And he prays a prayer and he says, God, I pray one more time. One more time. Touch me. Let that virtue flow. Let that power flow. Let that mercy and that grace flow. And allow me to rip this whole building down by pulling these two pillars that I'm chained in between, pulling them. So he finished praying, and he starts pulling, and he pulls those two pillars that are supporting, along with many other pillars, but he pulls those two pillars and starts a domino effect, and that whole pagan temple falls down on all of the leadership of the Philistines, essentially cutting off the head of the serpent. And so his life ended tragically because he too died. And it was a part of his prayer. He said, let the strength flow, and let this building fall, and let it kill them and me. And so he put himself out of his own misery, and he also had a great victory over the enemy, and he reconnected to God. And so tragic, horrible, but it applies to our lives, does it not? When we let our guard down, when we lay our head in the lap of our enemy, and we're stony baloney, or we're, compromised, or we're in a different state, and we let our guard down, whatever the case may be, whatever your temptation is, whatever your vice is, whatever it is that you're laying your head in the lap of the enemy of your soul, that which wants to see you destroyed. You may love it. Oh, I love my vices. I love my XYZ. But does it love you? Is it for your benefit? Is it there to make you better? Is it there to help you rise to your potential and to become the best version of yourself? Or is it there to actually drag you down? That's the question this morning, this Sunday morning. Where are you laying your head? Where are you resting your mind? Where are you letting your defenses down in areas that you should not? In people, places, and things that do not have your best interests at heart. And so it leads you to blindness. It leads you to slavery. It leads you to being a laughingstock and being mocked and ridiculed by those that know that you had great potential and that you squandered it. But can I tell you, it's never too late. Your hair can grow again. Your covenant can be renewed. You can be reconnected to God. You can be plugged in to the source and let the virtue and the power and the grace and the mercy flow. And when that happens, you can destroy your enemies. Now, we live in a different time, and it was a bloody, history. And so, but if we apply it spiritually, we can see the overlap, that we can conquer that which has conquered us. So to be an overcomer People forget that you must first be overcome. Revelation says that we are made overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. To have a testimony, you have to pass the test, do you not? And to be an overcomer, you must first have been overcome, overwhelmed. You must have lost before you can have a victory, right? To be an overcomer, that means that you were battling something and then you overcame it. You say, I overcame cancer, it's in remission. Well, it means that at one point, cancer was kicking your butt, right? So here we see that defeat is not your destiny, that it's not final. If you've fallen, get back up. You may have a bloody nose. You may have some wounds and some scars and some bruises and some stories to tell. But can I tell you exactly what Solomon said? A live dog is better than a dead lion. A lion, the king of the jungle, a little puppy dog is better than a lion if it's alive. Because if the lion's dead, it's over. He that hath life hath hope. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're among the land of the living, as long as you're listening to this little story on a Sunday morning from some guy that decided to let his hair be what it is, which is a total hot mess, you too can be yourself. You too can be comfortable in your own skin. You too can be proud to be a sinner saved by grace. You too do not have to hang your head in shame, walk in spiritual blindness, and be in slavery and in bondage to things that want to control you and destroy you. But you too can have victory. All you got to do is renew that covenant. Let your hair grow. Plug back in. Do the right thing. Overcome. Rise above. And pass the test so that you can have the testimony. God bless everybody this morning. Have a wonderful day.